Hi everyone, Medina here from Arise Humanity on YouTube and Soul Tribe on Rumble, which is my new show with the Freedom Channel Broadcast Network. And I'm really excited to say it's going super well. On average, it has about 25k views weekly. So I'm really excited about that and hoping that I'm therefore doing something right. So please join me for my Soul Tribe show on Rumble, on live on Sundays. And I'd like to give you some updates about what's happening at the minute. Firstly, we have an amazing dowsing workshop coming up on Saturday, the 19th of August with Ian Welsh. And this is a masterclass in dowsing, but it will be teaching the basics because I myself am a novice when it comes to dowsing. So I'll be learning from scratch. But Ian will be teaching some of the more advanced aspects of dowsing as well in the workshop. So it's for everyone that wants to learn about dowsing. And there are still some spaces available. So the links will be below if you'd like to book into that dowsing workshop. It will be incredible. All his workshops have been really popular. And I'd also like to mention that on my website at medina.com, MEDYHNE. We have also an opt-in page at the moment, and that opt-in page is in order to receive some wonderful free offers from my Soul Tribe show. So there's some downloads there available for my show that people have requested, things like prayers, decrees, invocations, and there's also some links to sign up to Denson's to get his book, which is an incredible book channeled by Archangel Michael, and it is $12 Australian, so it's just covering the administration fees, and it's a PDF, and it is so fascinating, this book that Denson has brought through. So if you'd like to get a copy of that book, A Journey Out of Hell from Denson, please go to the link below, and you can also go to my website to the opt-in page to receive this book. What else? I have other things happening at the moment, which are my higher School of Workshops videos have been going really well, and people have been very interested in those. So they will be covering the 6 main workshops in completely different areas by global experts in their areas. So if you'd like to learn some new things, please go to my High School of Learning video workshops with some incredible teachers, and I think you will love those workshops. The link below is for that as well. I'd also like to mention that coming up on Sunday, I have an interview with Tim Sanders, who is the founder of Omnia, and Omnia advanced technology to help with EMF and radiation. So he's going to talk about the impact of that and you know, all aspects to do with that in this wonderful live show on Sunday. And there will be a special link as well below if you want to buy your own Omnia stickers to protect yourself against EMFs and radiation. These are incredible. I have a previous interview with Tim on my channel. I'll put the link below as well. And these stickers are one way that you can put protection on all your different technology in your house. And, you know, with muscle testing and everything, they have proven that these stickers really contribute to you having strength and immunity in your body against these sorts of energies and frequencies around you in your home. And so I really recommend them. I have them all myself. I only will recommend things that I do for myself. So with that, I'd like to introduce to you the amazing Vonn, and she's going to share with us her life journey. So I hope you love it. Vonn has so much wisdom and knowledge to share. So this will be special. Thank you and enjoy.
But how, when I look back at my life, how every step is like an apprenticeship to take you to the next step of consciousness, and just, get there.
Well, I'd like to just start by saying a big thank you to my Patreon community, because we had a wonderful gathering last night for my birthday party. I've never had an online party before, and we had so much fun. And because I love music and I love ABBA, so we sang ABBA songs, and we had lots of fun. And we actually had even two incredibly opera singers in the group, so they both sang. And we had a ball. So thank you to my beautiful Patreon community for sharing my special day with me last night. It was really, really fun, and I love the Patreon community. So if anyone would like to join this amazing community, a global community, please go to the link below, and there are different levels that you can join, and join the fun, because we have lots of fun and do some great things. And we also do planetary healing as well as community chats and things. So it's a fantastic space for people, and it helps you to feel really connected to other like-minded people, which is so important to build community at the moment. So I'd like to now start by saying we have a really amazing guest today, which is the wonderful Yvonne teoh Bource. Do I pronounce it Bource? Is that how you pronounce your surname, Vonn?
It's Bource, but
Bource.
that's fine.
Okay, I was close.
You were close. You were close.
Yvonne teoh Bource. And Vonn is an incredible way shower and a spiritual teacher. She has so much wisdom to share, and she has a powerful sort of divine connection and spiritual presence. And she also runs Bali retreats as well, I'll mention. And she is somebody that we can all learn from, because I feel that in our Western culture, we don't have the type of setup or foundation where we actually listen to our elders, and we listen to the people that we can learn so much from, who are our elderly, who have been through life. They've had all this experience. On top of that, Vonn has her spiritual connection and her divine wisdom to share with us. And we're not traditionally used to really tapping into this incredible resource that we have in our midst. The people who have been through life and had so much experience and so much to share, they're often tucked away in nursing homes, or they're not, we're not able to tap into them, and their beautiful gifts, and their love and their compassion and everything that they have to share with us, in the way that maybe other cultures can. Like, for example, Japan revere their elderly, and they listen to them and they learn from them. But we don't do that in our culture, and it's such a huge gap in what we need to be doing as moving into the new earth and moving into the new golden age. They are here to teach us so much. People who have reached an older age, where they have things that they know that we don't know. And so we need to be open to building these new foundations, where we're able to really honor them and acknowledge people in our midst who are resources of profound knowledge and wisdom. So anyway, that's just my little rant on what we need to do moving forward. So big welcome, Vonn. It's wonderful to have you here. I'm really excited to hear about your life journey. And I know that you're wanting to share that, because not for a sense of expressing anything about yourself in any sort of egoic way, but you're wanting to express this because we can all learn from your journey and your path. And instead of actually having to go through the challenges and the difficulties, sometimes when we hear other people's story, we learn so much that we don't have to go through the hard bits ourselves, and we can just learn from that. And you're wanting me to also maybe interject here and there if I've got any similarities or commonalities, which will be fun. So welcome, Vonn. I'm very excited to hear about your journey and also to learn from it. So thank you.
Thank you, Medina. And I'm really looking forward to this chat. And happy birthday for yesterday.
Oh, thank you. 22 again.
Every time.
Every time.
Yes. I think I'm 38.
You're older than me.
You know, I just reverse it when it works for me.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Look, thank you for this opportunity, because you know what you just said was just so important. I avoid being classified as elderly, but I was listening to someone the other day who was talking about their 90-year-old father, and you know, it was such, and how wonderful it was. And I thought to myself, well, that's only 6.5 years away, you know. And but you know, we don't age inside. Well, I certainly haven't.
No.
But also this culture we have where there is a lack in reverence, and it's not just for the elderly. It's reverence for life, reverence for ourselves, and reverence for each other. It's one of the reasons I love going and doing the retreats in Bali, because they don't need to know who I am or what I've done. They just have an instant reverence, and that has opened doors for me that don't open here, and that I can then, you know, take people to, which is amazing.
Can I ask a question about the Vonn? Is it reverence for your energy? Because they're just picking up your
They
own
just see me. Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the Balinese, the true Balinese, are very connected to soul, very connected to spirit. So they read who I am without having this, you know, she's a white woman, what is she a tourist? What is she doing here? They just don't even ask the question. And that's amazing. And so I think in the West, we're so conditioned to look through the eyes of judgment, of right, wrong, good, bad, you know, what color are you, whatever, what do you do, how much money do you have? It's all about status and success. And so in the more indigenous cultures, that's not even a consideration. They feel you. And that is, in a way, that is why we attract animals to, you know, to us, because they don't care what you do.
No, absolutely. That's a great point. You know, when I was in Bali, I did notice that when I was sitting with the drivers, they would never get flustered. They wouldn't get stressed. They did, you know, in Australia, you know, people swear and carry on when when they're driving, you know. But over there, and I said to them, I said, I am so impressed by, you know, how you just don't, because some of the driving's crazy over there. They're all over the place. But you know, I said, I'm so impressed you don't get stressed. I was running a Bali retreat at the time. And the driver said to me, oh, what's the point of getting stressed? There's no point in it. No. So that they have this continual peaceful demeanor where they're constantly connected, and they don't need to get upset and frustrated. And there's temples everywhere where they're connecting, you know, spiritually as well. So, you know, there's a constant reminder all the time of this higher connection in themselves. And I think that's really powerful.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, I'm going back again in November, which is amazing. So, all right. So why am I here to talk about my journey? It's a long one. But for me, when I look back at the purpose, you know, the meaning of life, once upon a time, that was something we talked about a lot. What's the meaning of life? But we kind of we've been so distracted by commercialism and materialism and all the other distractions that we've forgotten to ask the question, what's the meaning of life? And that's been a big question in my life, because I was born in Holland in October 1939, when we were on the precipice of one of the worst wars on earth, although every war is a worst war. And to a Jewish mother and a non-Jewish father. So that was the way that my soul decided was the best way for me to enter this lifetime. Wow. And I really say that, you know, consciously now. I say that with great awareness now, because the essence of me is peace and love and ancient wisdom. Wow. And so I came in as a very, very wise old soul. And I say that because we after the war we visited I probably one of two relatives that survived my mother's family. My mother came from a huge family that were all, found their demise in the gas chambers of Auschwitz and such. So when and after the war, I remember going to visit her uncle and my great uncle, and I used to be so terrified of life. So I was sitting like this and just observing, and I used to call me Oa Mashama, which I had never any idea what that meant. And much later, many years later, I asked, what did that mean? And he said, she's an old soul and has been here many times. And I was only about 6, I think. Anyway, going back to my birth. So I was born with cesarean section, which actually is important because when we went through those times on the journey of everybody going back to rebirthing, my soul said, what the hell would you want to do that? We made sure you have to go through that in the first time.
So you really didn't want to come in, so you had to be sort of
no, I wanted to come in,
but you did.
I didn't need to go through struggle.
Oh,
I was just gently lifted out. It was an
wow.
intentional cesarean because it was rare in those days, because my mum's life was at stake if she tried to give birth.
Oh.
So, I was just lifted out. I didn't have to do any work. It was all very nice. So they didn't really get to me why I would want to go through a rebirth when I didn't have to do it in the first place.
That's fascinating.
So I digress. So I was born into that mayhem where, a German occupation, and my first memory was because my parents were very involved as leaders of the underground and the resistance, and doing their utmost to save as many Jews as possible.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So, but that was beautiful. However, just down the road, we had a headquarters of quite a large German army base. And so they were on the alert, and so every day we were visited by SS officers in grey uniforms and black boots. And so my earliest memory is standing in my cot, and I just had breakfast. I remember my mum helped. We had porridge at the time. That was obviously, I was very, very little, so we hadn't completely run out of food. And I heard voices, and I'm standing in my cot. That's my first memory. My mother, the door flinging open, my mother coming in with papers under her arm and another bowl of porridge. She shoved the papers, she slammed the door shut, shoved the papers under my mattress, looked me in the eye and said, eat. And I'm a baby and I've just had breakfast. But there was no argument. And I ate. That's my first memory. And then the door opened and an SS officer with my father coming to search the house, looking to catch them out, which would have meant instant death right then and there, including myself. So that's what I was born into. We were hiding people under the floorboards and cupboards, and it was just on constant alert and fear. So I was born into fear.
Absolutely.
Massive fear. Never outside the front door until I was 6, I think, or 5, whatever the age. And I'm not saying that for people to go, because what I want people to realize is everyone has a story, and everyone has an intentional childhood. And when we start looking at why did my soul decide to have this experience? Not, woe is me, I had this trauma and that trauma and something. I've done years and years of work on my own inner child work, and I have my little inner child sitting here. And for those of you who follow me, they know. So that's a little girl as she came out of the war, But then, of course, my soul hadn't had enough of that yet. And we went straight off to Indonesia. And that's the little girl that was on her way to Indonesia to go straight into civil war. So, you know, my early childhood was all I saw out there were people harming people.
Yeah.
Fear, fear, fear. You know, in Indonesia, it was Sukarno who was a completely insanity person who just had these loudspeakers saying, you know, shoot or chop off heads of all Chinese and blondas, which is white people. So
so they fled to Indonesia to try to escape what was going on.
No. My parents never fled. Well, we did. We fled from Indonesia back to Holland. So after the war, you know, it was very difficult to get work, and my father was so disillusioned with what had happened and the people who had been traitors, etc., etc. I mean, there's a whole other story in there, but we'll go through that. And so he decided to leave the country, and so he was a chartered accountant and went to and he got a position in Jakarta as a CEO of a big import-export company. But when he arrived there, it was about the time that Sukarno lifted up. And so when we arrived there, we arrived into civil war. Wow. And so that was, of course, yet again for my soul, when I look at my soul, and I was so terrified of the outside world. I was so introverted and so, you know, like
understandably.
And the only other thing about that I want to say is that was not my soul purpose. That was the extreme of where I ultimately would end up. And I want people to look at that and go, so what was the experience from a soul perspective, not from a human perspective?
Yes.
It's the human does the suffering, but it's the soul's purpose to have that experience for the contrast when I look at that. And so I became so separated from knowing who I was or having any connection. I just saw the world as, you know, an awful place. And so I had one little girlfriend who lived up the road from us, and but before I arrived in the street, she had her next door neighbor was a girl that she was friendly with, but she was not very well educated. She was half Indonesian, which I have nothing against. All my children have mixed blood, which I love, but she wasn't educated, and she was a bit of a street kid. And when I arrived, she became insanely jealous. So she used to lie in wait after school to try and attack me. But often, you know, I was driven to school, and I was, and when I wasn't, my little friend's big sister would defend me. Yeah. But then one night, I had a rule in my house, because in the tropics, there is no long dusk, you know, it's just light and it's dark. And so my mum used to say, no, you must be home before it gets dark. And we lived about 3 doors down. So it was just on the brink of darkness. And I went, oh my goodness, I'm late, gotta go. I was 11 years old. And this girl was lying in wait for me to go home. And just as I was passing her house, she came out and she threw me in front of a car. She just pushed me on the road. And but it was a military jeep, and the major was having a heart attack. But as you see, he didn't run over me. But that changed something in me. You know, that moment was really pivotal, where all of a sudden I stopped being a victim of life.
You wanted to stand up to the injustice.
Well, the life force in me suddenly stood up.
Yes.
And then from that day on, I became a fighter. I fought anybody who was trying to persecute anybody else, You got to remember that my lineage is of persecution, right?
Yes.
So any injustice, I would, I'd punch their lights out. Literally, I just go. I became this fighting machine.
Wow. Look, this is really funny because I just had a talk to a friend of mine who's an amazing medium. And she said to me, she goes, I'm pretty sure you're connected to Joan of Arc. I said, I sure am. I said, I've got an image of her on my computer that I share saying, Joan up, And I really resonate with that energy. And she says, my soul is actually has a connection with her soul, or we're one of the same, or that's what she's saying. And I can resonate because I've always aligned with her energy. So I always stood up against injustice. Maybe that's why we connect so well, Vonn. So I
think so.
I can totally relate to that. Absolutely.
So, but the people of Indonesia, let me tell you, I adored them. They were just gentle and wonderful.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Sukarno changed all that, and they're not that anymore. But that's what attracts me to Bali, because when I went to Bali, it was like going back to my childhood, to the good memories that I had there.
Yes.
Okay, so we did flee from Indonesia because things just became pretty dangerous, and they were after my dad because he was he was a fighter.
Yeah, powerful. Yeah.
So we were there back to Holland for a short time, but it was overcrowded because everybody was fleeing Indonesia. So it's a very little country.
And there's so many people in Indonesia. It's huge.
Well, yeah, there were a lot of Dutch people there. So, anyway, so then we came to Australia. And it was in Australia, I guess, that I, for the first time, learned about freedom.
Right. And
that's also why at this time I was so disillusioned with how easily the good old Aussie spirit has given itself away. That's another story.
That's true. Yes. We're all disappointed to see that. I can tell you.
But so I came to a country where, it was amazing. Mind you, I hated Australia when I came here. No culture whatsoever, Don't know where I ended up. However, I eventually learned to love this country, but I just take myself back to when I was this little introverted child just after the war, and I was lying in my little bed, the only room that I really felt safe. I used to pretend to speak English. Now I had no idea what English sounded like.
So you're manifesting from that early point. You're manifesting this, yeah.
Well, no, I'm doing a manifestation masterclass at the moment, and one of the things that I actually have talked about is that people think that manifesting is creating, that we have to manifest to create something. We are manifesting machines. We are manifesting all the time.
Yeah.
Life is creating itself through us. So why I'm saying this is that I believe that my destiny was already there. My soul had an intention of utilizing what it's experienced in an English-speaking country.
Can I ask a question here? Or do you think that your soul has already pretty much mapped out where it's going to go and what it's going to do prior to incarnating, and then you just follow that journey as you go along?
I believe so. I believe, but not just one option, though.
Yeah.
I think it has several options that will give the certain experience that it's come here to have.
Yes.
Because the interesting thing is, my father had a choice to either go to Peru or to go to Australia, and they were all ready to go to Peru, and he changed his mind, and we came to Australia. Now, funnily enough, part of my spiritual journey, my shamanic journey was to go back to Peru.
Right.
And I go, I meant to go there anyway.
What was it that made him switch and make that choice? Just an intuitive thing that he did?
Oh, no, he didn't. I don't think so. I have no idea. What, I was too young. I was only 9 when we left to go to internet. I was only 12? No, 14. Sorry, I'm losing track. 14 when I came here.
Yeah.
But it just, again, it was like, oh, hang on. So there was that opportunity for both.
Yes.
I did it a bit later when it was more suitable for me. Talking about my parents, so my father actually had studied. He was mind over matter. There were his words: mind over matter, mind over. But he had studied magnetic healing.
Wow.
Before the war broke out.
That's very progressive, wasn't it, for that time?
Very progressive. He apparently, the story goes that he actually got a man who was in a wheelchair for 20 years. He was able to get him walking. My mother was a clairvoyant. She used to read tarot.
Wow.
But she just did it for her family.
I can
but
see
just before,
where you get your skills.
So this is another thing that I want to point out, that our parentage is not accidental. There are things in them that we are now, I'm the next step of both of them.
Yeah.
This is what we bring with us. And so I never saw my mother in that way, because just before the war and at a big family party, everybody said, oh, read the cards. And she did. And she saw nothing, no future for most of the people that were there. And she thought she lost the gift, but of course she hadn't. She didn't know. They were all, going. So she never would touch them in my lifetime.
Well, that would have been a shock too, to see that. And
And not knowing why, and then eventually knowing why. My mum was very wounded for the rest. She never recovered, really. She was sick all of her life. My life. So that's the parentage. Where am I? So then when I came to Australia, had a wonderful teenage, whatever, learned to love Australia. So let's fast forward. Because my mum was always sick, I was determined I was going to heal her. So
you were like a caretaker for her, but maybe that was
we all had to, yes, I was mothering her a lot. So I went in the nursing profession, as it then was nursing, which I'm afraid it's lost its way also a lot. But and went into, I was very hands-on, so I went into the surgical field. So I spent a lot of years there and learning. When I look at the journey again, what was the reason? What was my soul's reason for that? My soul
that was triggering your healer, your inner healer.
Yeah, but not only that, why did I then go into surgery? Well, because when I want to visualize someone's health, I actually know what a healthy organ looks like. I know what an unhealthy organ looks like.
Yes.
It was really getting to know anatomy and physiology in a depth that has stood by me to support, people that I work with. It's been amazing. And this is really why I'm sharing this. It is this journey that you take has a purpose. Definitely. It's not to make you suffer. It's for the experience of it and looking for the gifts. As tough as all of that might sound, there are huge gifts in it.
So do you have the ability now to go in and look at someone and see the organs and whether they're healthy or not healthy due to that background? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not a medical intuitive. What I do have is that I see energy. I see all of you. So I see either your vibration is high or your vibration is low. I don't go into the detail, but if somebody comes to me and says, well, I've been diagnosed with this, I can then say, well, this is what it looks like when it's healthy. So start to visualize that, and then I can also show them how it works and what, that kind of thing. But no, that wasn't in my soul journey to be a medical intuitive. And I'm a bit grateful for that because I quite like where, what the intention was.
Mm.
So fast forward, then, I married a Malaysian Chinese gentleman, much against my father's horror because he was very, very racist and produced all these beautiful children. Well, three of them. And just lived a normal life of mum and, well, normal. But, there was this thing, and I think I wrote about it this morning. I write. So
Yes.
I do these daily posts.
Yes.
And
Which is incredible. You've done them for such a long time, very disciplined, and always putting them out consistently to raise the frequency. So I really want to acknowledge that you've done an amazing job with that.
And that's really what my soul's all about. Every morning it tells me what to write, and this I can't remember. So where was I going? I totally fell off my train then, as happened.
Sorry. So you were talking about your husband and your wonderful children.
Oh, yes. So this morning I was talking about there is always an inner calling. Mm-hmm. We all have this, and time again, I get this people coming and saying, there's something in me that wants to come out, and I don't know what it is. And we all, I'm sure you've had it.
Yep.
It is just something in here that's like, it's in that solar plexus and heart space, right? It's like,
Can I share with you a sort of a little bit of a parallel that I was brought up in a family where I was told to, I wasn't really listened to, and I wasn't encouraged to speak. I was expected to be silent and be quiet and not express myself. And that part of the journey was there for a reason, for me to stand in my claim my authentic self, and to really learn to fully communicate and express who I am, even in a world that didn't align or support with my energy or my opinion. And so it's the same sort of thing that you're describing, but in my own way. So I came into a sort of a suppression of that so that I could learn to speak out. And I've just and showing the sort of trajectory of that, I've just been given this amazing platform with Freedom Channel Broadcast, and consistently now, since I've been doing this show for about 6 weeks, we've had 25,000 views of people watching me communicate and express my truth. So it just shows the same sort of thing that you're talking about, but in my own journey.
Yeah, and what's fascinating about that is that before all this craziness happened in the last few years, I already had my YouTube channel, and I was actually doing weekly lives or videos. And the minute that we went into this crazy thing, my team, my guidance system said, no, you're right. And what was fascinating to me is that I was then told not to be on screen, but to write. And then everybody else was just coming up and being on screen. And I'm going, oh, okay. And it's trusting that this is your role. This is your role.
Yes.
So this writing that I do every day, that's just comes from a higher wisdom that I allow to come through, which addresses where the collective is at most of the time.
Is that something that you're guided to put together in a book, everything that you've written about?
Well, I've got the Secret to Life book, and I did have a book before that, The Pearls of Vision, which were our daily thoughts for daily living. And look, everybody says it's got to be a book. Well, when the divine timing was meant to be a book, someone will turn up and take it and put it into a book.
And that happened to me. I'd written a book, and I was manifesting. I want a publisher. I was in a market when I started talking to someone. He was this amazing book publisher, had a publishing company called Heart Space. I told him about my book. He said, that sounds great. I love the sound of that. I gave him my book, and then it was published, and it went around in Australia. I did a tour talking to different radio stations and things, and it was amazing. It just, boom.
Well, and that happens, nowadays everyone is able to self-publish, but in the early days, you needed to publish, and the same thing happened with me. My question was, when I first went on this journey, was I need an instruction book. We don't have an instruction book. Yes. And so they gave me an instruction book, and The Secret to Life is really that. And I still use it. My clients still use it. But again, there was a publisher who said, "Yeah, I know. I'll take it on." So then I went through my nursing career, and just about language, because I don't have much of a Dutch accent, I don't think. But I was 14 when I got here, so I ought to have one. But I learned to speak English fairly fluently within 6 months. And that showed me that I was already encoded with that.
You had that soul memory, that.
I had that when I was a little kid, lying in the cot going, whatever I was going to do, So it fascinates me. I look at me much more from a perspective of that is the soul's way of having the experiences, rather than being entangled in the emotions of it.
Yes.
So I will say, have a look at it from a distance. Have a look at your life from a distance, and appreciate it, rather than going, "Oh, woe is me. Look, you're here. You're a survivor." Okay.
So Vonn, that's got me through in this lifetime, is to look at the bigger picture of my whole life. If I just looked at it in a small way, small aspects of it, it would be disheartening, actually. In some
way. Absolutely.
But when I look at the bigger picture and what I'm doing now, and what I've came to do, and what I've learned along the way, it feels so much better on so many levels. Yeah,
it's where looking at it and going, look at where it's taken you. I mean, it was tough at the time, and then you suffered, and it was, so I had very high principles, and one of my high principles was that you married for life. That was it.
Yes.
And what I'm about to say is very personal. I was brought up by a father who had he looked at women from one perspective. You had sex only when you were married.
Yeah.
And if you had it outside, you were a slut.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was so deeply ingrained in me that, that is in a way how I ended up being married, although I dearly loved, the whole experience of marriage and my children. And, I had a wonderful 23 years. But that was all that was in that relationship for me, to produce these amazing people.
Yes.
And I see that a lot in life these days, that we are brought together with somebody to procreate. A certain human needs those genetics,
yes,
for their journey. And then when the children are there, all of a sudden they don't feel as if they connect anymore. And we now get so caught up in the emotions of that, instead of going, oh, and I got this wonderful analogy only day before yesterday, when I was trying to describe something like that, because my team has wonderful imagination. And so they said, it's like having a cup of tea. I like my cup of tea.
Oh, me too.
And you have a cup of tea, right? And you get to the bottom and the cup of tea is empty.
Yes.
It's like trying to continue to expect to get tea out of an empty cup of tea, an empty cup. And then getting cross at the cup because it's empty. And then if you can just go, there is another cup of tea waiting for you. But then don't smash the cup.
No.
Right? It's like, that's all there is there for the soul's progression. When we can look at it from that perspective, and this is really why I'm sharing my story, because in my marriage, that there was this calling,
Mm.
this crazy calling.
Mm.
And so the calling was to go back to my teenage years and my early 20s, when I had a very serious relationship with somebody that I thought I was going to marry and ended up not. And it was the son of my mum's best friend. And so for some reason, out of nowhere, and it was 20 more years later, I kept hearing, find her. And I'm going, why? And I don't know if you've ever had this feeling that it's like you've got a hand in your back and it's pushing you.
Yes.
And I went to see my brother and I said to him, have you got any idea what's happened to her? He said, no, and I don't care. And if you want to find her, go find her. It was my journey, right?
Yeah.
So I did find her. But what I didn't realize is that her son was actually now had left his relationship and was living with her with his children. And that started a very short, very intense, very painful affair.
Mm-hmm.
And because of my principles, I could not go back to being with my husband in all. It just burst my marriage apart.
It was all divinely aligned because
So divinely aligned.
Completed.
That cup was empty.
Yes.
What I did, because and it's something I really want to share, I believed that family is sacrosanct. So I decided that I would leave the marriage, so the relationship of marriage, but I would keep the family unit together. And I did that. So I changed his job description. And for anyone out there who's thinking that their cup's empty in their relationship as a married couple, don't smash the cup. Don't look for tea where it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
But be honest and just change the job description from being a husband or a wife to family. I just changed my husband's job description to he's my family, and it's sacrosanct. He was as sacred to me as family as he was as my husband, just a different role.
Yeah.
So I was able to keep our family unit even though we weren't together. And boy, that has been such an amazing experience.
Fantastic. I was actually even talking about this particular topic to my partner last night, and we were sort of saying that when we married our partners, both of us at the time, it was sort of like we were put in that direction to marry them, even though rationally it didn't make sense. Like we wouldn't connect with someone like that now and say, oh, that person suits me, or that's a good choice. But there was like a higher calling of why we both came together with our partners at that time to have the children. It was all divinely, already predestined. The children had to have both of us as parents. And even though there was no reason, when I look back at it on a higher level, to have connected with this person, because in many ways we weren't in resonance and we didn't connect, but it was all meant to be, and like if you try and understand it logically, it doesn't make sense. No. But because there's a spiritual divine higher calling in it, you come together for the time you're meant to, and then it finishes, and then you move apart. And the same, we had these 3 beautiful children, actually 4. I had a baby who passed as well, but 4 beautiful children together. And that was all divinely aligned. And when that was complete, that connection, it very suddenly became clear that there was absolutely nothing there that I could continue with. And it was like a dead end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a dead end as husband and wife.
Yes.
Me, right?
Yes.
It's interesting you say that, you lost a child. I had 4 pregnancies and one of mine died in utero. So, we have things in common.
Yes, we do.
Yes. So the thing about that is, so why did my soul push me to go back into my past? Well, because this particular gentleman had actually started to dabble in spirituality. I did never even cross my mind, right? Had been very much into powers, this thing of my father, mind over matter. So I was very much into motivational speaking and all of those sorts of
And
things.
you trained as a nurse and worked in surgery, so that's a very sort of that sort of educational model that you've been through.
Yeah, but I had several other jobs after that, because when I got married, it was a time that nurses were not accepted once they were married, right? It was such a wonderful place. And so I had to find other jobs. And one of the big jobs that I fell into, which I absolutely loved, was as a beauty consultant for Mary Kay Cosmetics. May she rest in peace. And I was able, I met some amazing people in my life. For instance, Weary Dunlop was one of my surgeons, and I learned so much from him, and I had such a beautiful relationship with him. And so Mary Kay was the same. She was what you would call an iron fist in a velvet glove. And she was an amazing woman, and I had a very personal relationship with her for many years. And so these were all little gems that came across. And through that, I went to the US, and I was introduced to Zig Ziglar, for anybody who's old enough to remember who that is.
Yes, he's the one that goes to the hospitals and is the clown and gets the patients laughing and all that sort of thing.
Zig was an amazing person, and he introduced me to a little yellow sheet that said that daily menu. And I carried that. I had no idea why, but I carried that with me forever, and I still have it. And it's the center of my book, The Secret of Life. And because what he said was, if you go to a restaurant and you order a meal you want that you like. Well, you have a life. Order your life to what you like. Don't order your life according to what you don't like.
Yes.
Putting it in very simple form. Yeah. So I had motivational background, but no spirituality whatsoever. I did a test actually once about, your physical, your emotional, your mental, your spiritual. And I went physical, yes, I could work. That was at that level. Emotional, yeah. Mental, I was like a, intellectual. I was very out of balance. Spiritual, no, I didn't go to church. No, didn't do that. So I was not anywhere near that. But this gentleman had started to dabble in it because he was going out with somebody who was very much into her spirituality. And so for me to heal from that short connection, I took the books that he introduced me to. And so that was his role.
And sometimes people come in just for a short period, but they have a huge impact on your life, and they can make your life go in a completely different direction. And they're only there for a short time, and then they leave, but they've had this amazing impact. Yeah.
Incredible impact. And it took me, a few years to recover from, but I spent every day of my life being grateful for it, because it turned me towards my eventual purpose for being here.
Yes, totally.
And so that was my journey of awakening. And then I left my marriage, and I went and took my kids, and I went, and I started to go to bed, and I was so heartbroken. I was heartbroken because I did something that I didn't think I ever would do. And, and my life was just a mess. It was in crisis. I'd go to bed and I'd go, I don't know what all this is about, but I'd better have a purpose for it. I started saying, I want to live my purpose, show me the way. I didn't even know what that sentence meant. And I would wake up in the morning, and this is how the story becomes really weird. I would wake up with knowledge that I did not go to sleep with. So I was waking up with the knowledge that that the earth was about to have a rebirth or whatever, but a new earth was about to be born.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
And that huge changes were afoot, and I had volunteered to be here.
Yes.
And I mean, I was sitting in the deepest depths of chaos and pain. And so I'm going, was I insane? Why on earth would anybody want to go through this? However, that was what I said. You volunteered, and I so then what was downloaded was what was ahead, and the things like the fall of the Roman Catholic Church, the fall of the monetary system,
Yeah.
and how that something was going to fall on Manhattan, and I thought I imagined it would be a meteor or something, and that would destroy. That was meant to be the change of the monetary system. That is what was.
It was going to be announced the next day. Yeah.
I know.
Yes.
But this is in 1989.
Wow. So all these things were downloaded to you before they happened. Yeah.
This was between 1980, because 1987, my awakening was at the harmonic convergence of it, August 15, 1987.
And that's my birthday, August the 15th.
I know. A wave of people like me were awakened. And everything was just put in front of us, and they showed me how the new earth was going to it was possible. It depended on humanity. My job was to educate, inspire, uplift people energetically, so that it was up to us whether it was going to be possible, because we had fallen so far back.
Yeah.
So everything that's happened since then, I was actually given. And so for me, it was, not the how to, right? But this is the purpose of it. Yeah. And then they gave me these drawings, and I'm so bad at that. And the drawing was that it's like, when so the sort of a ball of the earth, and then they showed me this sliver coming out. This is how this new earth is. That's where we are now. You could hardly see it. And as I progressed over the years, and then I started teaching, and people just came. I had people coming in. So one day somebody knocked on the door, and you've got to remember, there is no mobile phones, right? There certainly no internet. There's none of those things. Somebody knocked on my door and handed me a box. And I said, "What's this?" And I said, "How did you find me?" Because I hadn't even told people where I was living. And they said, "We were sent by someone that you needed these." And it was 12 tapes on the Ascension by the White Brotherhood, all channeled.
That's incredible, isn't it?
And I'm standing there going, channeled? What's channeled? So the first experience of a channel then was, because, I go looking for books. I spent half my time in the Theosophical Society secondhand bookstore.
Yes.
And
I know that one.
And then I came across, I think we started having, tapes of Lazarus. He's still, that's him, Jack's still doing that.
Wow.
And that was my first introduction to listening to a voice from, higher realms.
Yes.
And the other one was Ramsar.
Yes.
So they were my introductions of higher wisdoms at the time.
Yeah.
And I started, and I became a curiosity freak. I just kept, a little bit like Johnny Five is Alive. Input.
Soaking it all in.
But then also everything I learned and what was downloaded for me, I needed to teach. So I just became the teacher and ran groups, and I've been doing that ever since.
Yes.
But the downloads just keep, they keep coming. And then every now and then I'd get a new vision and then that show you know humanity is doing really well. So in those early days, I was a very intellectually proud person, and you know that was my Dutch heritage, and I very practical, very grounded, practical. If I can't see it,
Well, nurses are very practical, aren't they?
Have to be, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, particularly in surgical nursing, because you know it's very much a practical. You need to react.
Think on your feet, don't you? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So all this woohoo stuff was like, but on the other hand, I'm also born in at the time of Scorpio, so I was then, had that part in me that knew there was so much more. I was curious about the occult.
I've got another dear friend who's a Scorpio too.
Yeah. So then I was I would have phone calls from people, and this particular phone call was, we've made an appointment for you to go to this address because you need to meet this person. And so I got to the point where I just said, show me the way.
And you were in the flow of what presented at that moment. And also I think that was a really good balance that you had, because you had that sort of grounded practical nature or aspect to you, but you also were bringing through, this amazing divine connection. So it's like you've got 2 feet firmly planted on the ground on Mother Earth, but you're also a great conduit and connection to the divine. So that seems to me to be a good balance.
I had to be very grounded because what was being offered to me was so out of left field. So go to this house, and the door is open, and this very slim Caucasian looking man stands there in a very white robe, and he said, "Oh, we've been waiting for you." And I'm going, okay. And he said, my name, no, my ground crew is called Neelazar. This was this terminology. And I'm going, ground crew, Neelazar. And he said, I have walked into this body for the purpose of supporting the, the rise of humanity. Well, can you imagine opening a door and then being greeted like that?
I love that. That is so cool.
And I'm standing there, and then he says to me, do you know of a really good masseuse? And I said, I was running a center at the time, and I had a beautiful masseuse. And he said, my ground crew is really feeling stressed. It needs some work. And I went, yes, I do. And just on that point, I called her afterwards and sent her there. And when she told me later, she said it was like massaging a Play-Doh doll. There was absolutely no resistance in it. Anyway, I walked in, and as soon as we took 3 steps, and all of a sudden, he channeled a different being who had a different message for me.
Yeah.
And then we sat down, and that particular entity said, what's taking, you're ready, you need to progress, you have a role, you need things to do. And I'm sitting there going, okay, whatever, I mean, Vonn was trying to take it in, but I knew I just had to give up. And so then, so that entity left, and then another entity came through him, and they did some work on me.
Yeah.
With permission. Everything was always with permission. And they told me I needed to change the job description of my intellect, because in the West, we're all conditioned to, our brain is what rules our life.
Master. Yes. That's very much a Western thing. Yeah.
And I had to change the job description, and I needed to make the first mate. And from now on, the master was my heart and soul.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And I went, oh, okay, right.
Which is what everyone's trying to do now, is to open their heart center and get out of the mind and go into that center there. And, there's different techniques to do that. But I'm often working with clients with that as well.
Yeah. And so I'm going, okay. Anyway, they gave me some exercise to do. And now you've got to remember, this guy didn't know my name, didn't know where I came from. Well, on a physical level, he didn't know.
No.
But he'd been waiting for me.
Yes.
So I left him. We had no connection, had no phone numbers, nothing. I said, thank you. He had done his job. That was what he was supposed to do for me.
Yeah.
And I went home. So what I'm really saying, if you really trust, you follow. Soul knows.
Yes. Yes.
And it was a huge leap of faith.
Mm.
So what I learned was every time that I interfered with that, I crashed and burned.
Doesn't go well. No. It's like when you hear a voice and you don't listen to that voice.
Absolutely.
There's always consequences.
But I went home to do the exercise. A few days later, I'm sitting there and I got this pain in my back. I'm trying to tell my intellect, thank you very, very much, but, we've got a different job for you. And it was like someone had a knife between my shoulder blades. And I'm going, it's not liking it as much. And my phone rings. And I get up and it was Neelazar. Remember, I left him no information. And all he said was, it's Neelazar. Are you having a bit of trouble? I was told to ring you. We will remove the knife.
Wow.
It's like, it's that so bizarre.
I love it. So who was putting the knife in, I wonder? Someone that didn't want you to evolve?
No, it was the intellect that
it was the intellect
to give up its job, right?
Okay, right. It didn't want to lose
and
it.
I shared it with you because it's that the difficulty of stopping this, this master. Difficult. So for me, it knew I was coming for it, so it was stabbing me in the back.
How fascinating. Yes, I've got techniques I work with that with people to release that and let that go, surrender it. Yeah.
Well, my technique was a phone call from somebody from the 80s. I had no idea. And so that was the end of that one. But years later, I got and I'm sharing this because it's so not of this world.
Yes.
I got a postcard from Sedona, which is where they all hailed from, the walk-ins.
Yes.
And it said, hello, I have walked into what was Neelazar and I have you in my memory banks. And Neelazar wants you to know that he has left, he has finished, and he's gone back to wherever. And, and I just stood there held, and I'm going, you can't, people are going to lock you up.
See, for me, I love all that stuff. I'm so good about it.
I know, and they were that's just one of the many crazy things that occurred to me on the way to keep showing me that there was something beyond that knew.
Yeah.
And my whole journey, even till today, it's like the retreats. I'm in the shower and my team says, you need to be in Bali on the 12th of December, 2012, and you need to anchor a crystal at 11:11 a.m. And I'm going, good morning. How am I going to do that? And, and then it just all happened. And it's exactly what I did, thinking that was just a one-off. But while I was doing the Reiki for it, a friend took me to this clairvoyant lady from Hawaii who said, oh, you've come home to work. And I'm going, no, I'm only here for one. And she goes, oh, no, you're not. So that was in, it's now 2023. And this is my second one this year. Of course, we had a break.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking, well, how much longer do I do this? Well, for as long as I'm told that I need to do it.
Fantastic.
Because one thing I have learned is to just really follow spirit without hesitation. And that is some of the terminology I get from the walk-ins, because yes, that was my only personal contact, but they sent me so much on tape, so much information.
Yeah.
To take me and then my students to new levels. And I have people that follow me that have been with me for 25, 30 years because they grow with me. I don't stand still for very long.
No, no.
And so I'm really sharing my story because I want people to know that we all have a purpose, and the purpose is not the doing.
Yes, that's true. And you might have a perception of what you're here to do, but actually spirit takes you in a different direction, and you just need to go in that flow and not fight it, and just allow yourself to surrender and let go. And because our mind can have us in some sort of direction that is actually truly not why we're here at a soul level.
Yeah, and we get so distracted constantly by the little things. If we can just keep, little things, don't major over minors.
Yeah.
Find this connection to soul. That is the name of my work, connection to soul. And ask soul, where to now? I get up in the morning and go, oh, where to now? And it was funny when you actually sent a message to say that you were having technical problems. And I went, oh, isn't this meant to happen today? And then the next minute you're connecting, and I'm going, oh, it is meant to happen today. It's like.
And I'll share with you too. Normally, I have an estimated amount of time that I've chosen for the interview for Zoom, and I have to put the amount in, and it can be different things, and I get guided. And I've put 1 hour 15 minutes, and it's been precisely 1 hour 15 minutes, and we're just winding up now. So that's another example.
There is another power when we allow it to show us, to flow through us.
Yes.
And and I really want to just say to people, life, which is soul, is life. Life has only one purpose, and that is to be allowed to express itself and live. And when you're occupying your life, diminishing the opportunities for that life to actually live, that's when the challenges and the tough times come.
Absolutely. I'll let people sit with that, because that's very profound. And I'd just love to say thank you so much, Vonn. I feel like we're meant to do more of these and talk.
Thank you, Medina. We have been brought together for a reason, and I just love it.
Me too.
We're both Aussies, and even though I wasn't to start with, I'm a very, very, very deep, heart-connected Aussie. It was always in my destiny to be here.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Vonn. What beautiful
thank you.
Sharing today. And I hope that the listeners out there have really enjoyed this journey as well. Please leave comments below if you'd love to leave a comment for Vonn. I think it'd be lovely to connect again soon, Vonn. Thank you so much.
Let's do it. And if that's in our soul have a contact for some reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's explore it.
Definitely.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Vonn. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.